During the early 2000s and 2010s, Top Gear was one of the biggest TV shows in the world. It was a motoring show that showcased every kind of vehicle imaginable. So when electric vehicles began to enter the mainstream car market, it was fascinating to see what the petrol-head V8-loving Clarkson would have to say about new additions to the EV car market.
Wave goodbye to dial-up and say hello to the world of broadband motoring. This car is electric, literally.
So with Elon Musk rising from the ground up with Tesla,
the company was bleeding money like crazy, and if we didn't solve these problems in a very short period of time, we would die.
How and why did a bad review spark a rivalry between these two giants of the motoring world? Throughout the years, Top Gear, and specifically Jeremy Clarkson, hasn't had the most optimistic view on the future of electronic vehicles.
In a few years' time, I expect that we will see you driving a rechargeable electric vehicle.
You won't. Not environmental. Well, you come home, you have to plug that stupid little hairdryer you go around in, yeah? You have to plug that into the wall. Where's it getting the power from to charge it up?
From
a power station,
yes,
which runs on
solar.
coal. Does slightly more damage to the environment than any normal car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you've got to have all the factories to make the batteries and make the electric motors for it. I mean, when we were shooting at this, you've got to take the batteries out of it in case they burst. There'll be acid everywhere.
So when Tesla spawned into its infancy and released the Tesla Roadster in 2008, disrupting the electronic car market, it had to pass the ultimate media trial by fire and get showcased on the biggest car show in the world. During the 7th episode of the 12th series in 2008, Jeremy produced a segment about, at the time, the newly released Tesla Roadster. In this segment, Jeremy ran the Roadster through a number of tests, the first being pitting it up against the Lotus Elise in a drag race. The Roadster was actually originally based upon the petrol Lotus Elise, hence the reason for the experiment. However, naturally, the electric Tesla dramatically defeated the Lotus, leaving Jeremy thoroughly impressed with the torque of the Tesla. Jeremy then went on to list a number of positives about the car, including the power generated from a battery the size of a watermelon and one moving part. He then pointed out a quote from Tesla, stating that the car had a range of 200 miles even when being driven quickly. So, Jeremy then razzed the Tesla around the Top Gear track, which pointed out the flaws of the Roadster around corners but quick on straights. However, during this driving, it cut to Jeremy inside the vehicle where a sound effect was placed and the Tesla allegedly ran out of battery just 55 miles into testing. The Tesla then had to be pushed into a hangar by the Top Gear crew, where Jeremy then went on to explain that from a normal plug socket, the car would take 16 hours to charge up. He also pointed out to the environmentalists watching that the electricity being used to charge up the Tesla comes from a nuclear power plant. The negative aspects of the car continued, with Jeremy pointing out that the Tesla was £91,000, 3 times more expensive than that of the Lotus at the time. They then tested a second Tesla Roadster, however that overheated just a short while into testing. When they went to reclaim the original Tesla from charging, the brakes had allegedly broken as well, leaving Jeremy to end the review noting that the car was a feat of engineering but just not applicable to the real world yet. After the episode aired, Tesla countered most of the claims made by Clarkson during his review. A spokesperson for the company, Rachel Conrad, claimed that neither of the cars needed to be pushed into the garage, as the level of charge on the batteries never dipped below 20%. Conrad continued, pointing out that the recharge doesn't take 16 hours, but in most cases, recharge is dead to full in 3.5 hours in a garage environment. Alongside this, she also pointed out that the brake failure was nothing but a blown fuse that was promptly replaced, with the car being back up and running within minutes. However, it wasn't until March 2011, 3 years after the episode aired, that Tesla sued the BBC for libel. During the court process, Tesla claimed that the episode cost the sale of 200 Roadsters, caused costs of $171,000, damaged investor confidence, and prompted adverse comments on YouTube. They also claimed that its pre-sale orders for its at the time new Model S sedan had been far lower than expected in the UK because of Clarkson's bad review. However, appeal court judge Lord Justice Moore Brick said he had watched the whole of the 1-hour Top Gear episode a number of times and questioned whether Top Gear's influence among petrol heads was as great as Tesla claimed. The court also ruled that no viewer would reasonably compare the car's performance on the show's air-filled track to how it would perform on a public road. The court also said that the problems portrayed in the segment were fabricated into a skit, which, in my opinion, if you see anything on Top Gear, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, because although there is genuine enthusiasm for cars, the show is heavily scripted and is mainly about three blokes pissing about that also just so happen to drive cars. But I can also understand Elon's perspective being angry, especially with Tesla being in its infancy at that point. Following the judgment, there was no immediate comment from Clarkson, as he was travelling to Australia for a live edition of Top Gear. However, executive producer of Top Gear, Andy Willman, stated, "I'm pleased that the appeal court has upheld the previous ruling, and the case has been struck out. I'd also like to apologise to the judges for making them have to watch so much Top Gear." In 2013, after losing his libel case and then the appeal, Elon Musk was interviewed on Newsnight, where he was asked about what he thinks of Jeremy Clarkson.
Earlier, Tesla received a very rough ride from the BBC's Top Gear program.
Well, I
wondered-
wouldn't paint all of BBC with Top Gear's brush.
I
Okay.
see. So what do you really think of Jeremy
I'm
Clarkson?
actually a great fan of the BBC. I was surprised to learn Top Gear was even on the BBC.
So what do you think of Jeremy Clarkson?
I think, well, Clarkson's show is much more about entertainment than it is about truth. And I think most people realize that, but not everyone. And I've actually enjoyed a lot of his shows. So it's not as though I just hate Top Gear or anything. He can be very funny and irreverent, but he does have a strong bias against electric cars, and he particularly seems to hate American. Like, his two pet peeves are American cars and electric cars, and we're an American electric car, so we're in the worst possible situation for someone like Clarkson.
So do you see this as missionary activity? You're over here trying to convert Jeremy Clarkson.
I don't think there'll be any converting of Jeremy Clarkson. Okay. That seems quite unlikely.
Hearing the outcome of the court ruling 2 years later, it left people to revisit the segment. One online commenter stated, "When I heard that Tesla sued for this review, I assumed it was because Clarkson did the whole review by making jokes about the Roadster not even being able to finish a lap, and then ending it by pretending that the battery spontaneously exploded. But this is actually a really level-headed, and any gripes don't look exaggerated or made up." Another classic case of British satire. If anyone watched Top Gear properly, one would realise that most car reviews give you minimal insight into the vehicle. The trio have insulted so many for entertainment. It's not a car show anymore, it hasn't really been for about 20 years. You have to remember this was from a time when Tesla was still on shaky ground. A bad review from the #1 car show in the world was a big fucking deal. In 2017, 4 years after winning the case, Jeremy was asked about what he thought of Tesla during a press junket for the Grand Tour.
Well, Elon Musk, I mean, the first time I reviewed a Tesla, he sued me and lost, and then he appealed and lost that as well. You know, it was a hard-hitting review, but it was a fair one. That original Tesla I didn't think was very good then, and I still don't now. God, they've come on. We have a Tesla Model X in the new series, and it's a lot of it's very impressive. Some of it's a bit dodgy, but a lot of it's very impressive. It's a really interesting new way of looking at what a car is. You know, there's a lot of stuff in that thing for a 9-year-old, and all men have a mental age of 9. I mean, you're sitting there, you're trying to, you're not 9, but in there, you're 9. We all are. We're all silly. And there's a lot of silly stuff in that car that appeals to the inner 9-year-old. I liked it. I think the world could become kinder, better place, perhaps because of electrical cars. I certainly have no problem with electricity as a means of propulsion.
On the 9th of February 2018, Jeremy reviewed a Tesla vehicle once again, this time during the second season of the Grand Tour, reviewing the newly released Model X. Jeremy admired the interior, practicality, self-driving applications, handling, and the speed of the Model X. However, like any review, Jeremy had negatives to say about the Tesla. Hilariously, while making these comments, he had a team of 6 lawyers in the car with him. Specifically comments and concerns about the mileage Tesla claims per charge, and also talking about battery fires and electric cars, but ultimately is all part of the comedic review. In the following year, Elon Musk made an appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, where they both discussed Top Gear and the Tesla review.
I've always been a fan of Top Gear, but I got disgusted when I found out what they did with your car, when they tried to pretend that the car broke down just to make an entertaining program where they had a laugh at the folly of this thing dying on them. but it didn't really die on them.
Yeah, that was messed up. I mean, to be totally frank, new Top Gear of recent years is a Tesla supporter. So I want to just voice a note of appreciation for Top Gear of recent years.
Well, James May, he has one, right?
Yeah.
But they're not Top Gear anymore, right? They're the Grand Tour. That's what they are on Amazon. Is that what they call them?
I don't know, but Top Gear has been supportive in recent years. But back in the day, remember at the time, Tesla was not a big company. We were just a little company, and we're we're the little kid on the block. So the Top Gear is like, hey, Top Gear wants to test your car. We're like, cool. And we only had a few cars, and we gave them one of our cars. And when we handed over the car, they had so one of our engineers goes, delivers the car, and then he sees a script on the table. It's like, how'd you write the script? We only just gave you the car. And in the script, the car breaks down.
Yeah.
It's messed up.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was crazy.
It was crazy because they basically sabotaged the company. I mean, that had to cost you guys a shitload of money because a lot of people watch that show, and car enthusiasts like myself kind of rely on them for. And there's also, obviously Jeremy Clarkson's hilarious. There's information. It's funny, but you would imagine that they could do that without lying about the actual performance of the car.
Yeah. The car never broke down. They just pretended that it did, and they wrote the script.
So crazy.
And literally, when our guys handed over the car, he's reading through the script, and it's like the car breaks down, runs out of charge, brakes fail, and we're like, what the fuck, man? We just gave you the car. This is not cool.
And what did they say about that?
Their objection was this is just entertainment. It's not meant to be true.
That's so crazy though, because they had to know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
In the following years after this Joe Rogan appearance, it left a number of people to question Jeremy's relationship with Joe. But Joe is actually a fan of Jeremy, but just friends with Elon. Naturally, the rivalry between Clarkson and Musk has expanded into the realm of Twitter. In the same year, during an interview with The Independent, Clarkson called Elon Musk an idiot and claimed they almost had a fight, and then made a comment about his children's names, suggesting that he called them John or Jane. In response to this article, Elon took to Twitter, where he described the orangutan as weird and rude. However, in 2024, there seems to be mutual respect between Clarkson and Musk, as can be inferred from Elon trying Jeremy's Clarkson Farm beer Hawkston Lager on a yacht.
I'm very sensitive to the taste of bitter. Bitter tastes beer. Beer tastes bitter.
You're unlikely to like this beer. Let's see what happens. Pretty good?
As beer goes, right?
Mr. Musk said on social media this week that he doesn't much care for beer, as beers go. Hawkston is pretty good, so I'd like to return the favour and say that I agree with him. Hawkstone is pretty good. The agenda that Top Gear hated electric cars and Tesla is a hard argument to make, especially considering they entered the car market themselves, creating Jeff, a feat of technological engineering. Not only that, they have given the G-Wiz and Prius its time in the sun as well. One commenter stated, about 10 years later, Tesla would rip off Top Gear's electric car design for the Cybertruck. Justice for Jeff. And despite James May claiming during the Tesla film that battery-powered cars will soon die altogether, he has previously owned a number of EVs and currently drives a Model S100D. But to be fair, still isn't completely convinced on electric vehicles.
BEVs, there's a lot I like about them. I like the silence. I mean, it feels like magic and Star Trek to me because I'm of a certain age. I like that they're polite. I can leave my little country hobbit cottage at 4 a.m. without disturbing even a worm. But I still think the ambition is way ahead of the battery technology. It's still not really good enough. Even
with the Tesla, where you have the supercharger network and...
Yeah, but there still aren't enough of them.
Overall, the Top Gear trio don't exactly have overwhelming positive experiences with electric cars as a whole, with Richard Hammond coming narrowly close to his death as a result of the electric Rimac, James May being a spaniel from the 1940s, and Jeremy Clarkson's complex history with environmentalists. As well as this, Elon is pretty much known for suing just about anyone who crosses him at this point, so the libel case was almost a matter of timing. However, Elon even stated himself that he is is aware Top Gear is more about the comedy and entertainment, and was even a fan of the show to some degree. But from his perspective, when a company you own is in its infancy and trying to revolutionize an entire industry, you have to be wary of any negative PR. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to watch more of my videos about Top Gear and Jeremy Clarkson, make sure to click here.